take it from the top for people who are watching in the first. Let's take it as a warming up. You know, as the last year has shown, we need to be flexible. We're dealing with a lot of challenges, a pandemic, financial challenges, challenges of institutional racism and inequality. But we won't let a few challenges like this live stream stop us. So we're back again, and I hope that the technology is working now, and that the link of the new YouTube link can be shared in the chat. Then I can keep my eye on it as well. My name is Mitchell Esajas, co-founder of the Black Archives, and I'm happy to host this online event, Voices of Fashion. And we have a few special guests today. They will introduce themselves in a minute. This event is part of a series of events related to an exhibition which opened recently, Voices of Fashion, which can be seen at Centraal Museum in Utrecht. I had the honor to look at it a few days ago. It's a very interesting and fascinating exhibition. One of the first, or maybe the first exhibition in an art museum in the Netherlands to query the white gaze as the default vantage point from which to present, wear, and collect fashion. And it also looks at, it's based on a few years of research on legacies of European colonialism on the industry and influence of Black thinkers, designers, fashion entrepreneurs, and businesses within the industry. So I'm very happy to have these special guests today. One all the way from LA, it's still morning time in LA. TJ Walker, co-founder of Cross Colors. I'm very happy to have you here. And from Amsterdam, where I'm based as well, Guillaume Schmidt from the legendary fashion brand Pata. We're going to have a conversation. People can also ask questions via the chat during the conversation. The weather is beautiful today, so I think a lot of people are outside, but people will be able to look back at it via YouTube. So let's start with a round of introduction with our guest all the way from LA. TJ, can I call you TJ?
Yes, please call me TJ.
Yes, as I said earlier, I'm not a fashion expert. I have a background in anthropology and business administration, specialized on histories of Black resistance. I do have a big interest in fashion, and especially as it relates to Black history. And I was not that familiar with Cross Colors, but when I saw, read into your history, looked at the images, I realized that I had seen it many times before in hip hop videos and TV shows. So that was very interesting. And I think a very important thing is that I was born in 1988 and the business was founded in 1989. So we're having an intergenerational conversation today. I think we have a few young listeners as well. So can you maybe tell a little bit about yourself and how the company was founded?
Yes, definitely. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to the museum. Thank you to everyone here and all those that helped to put this together. This has been long awaited, actually. We've been planning this for a long time, and now it's finally here, the day of presentation. So this conversation is really a needed one, and I'm very thankful for it to happen. So a little bit about me. My name is TJ Walker, and I'm one of the co-founders of Cross Colors, the clothing brand. We established ourselves, or started in 1989, and we started in Los Angeles, California, and that is still our home today in our rebirth of the brand again after so many years. Well, we started, I'm originally from Mississippi, here in in the States. And I moved to Los Angeles in 1985. And that's when I met Carl Jones, who is my business partner today. He had a screen printing company, and he was printing for the clothing industry at the time. And I did the graphic designs. I was hired as a graphic artist to work there. And from that, it just evolved into a relationship where we realized that we both had things we wanted to do and address. And from being a graphic artist with him, then I later became a partner with him in the Cross Colors brand. And that's just kind of how it started in a nutshell in terms of the brand itself. And then as we go dive into the conversation more, I'll give you more backstory on Cross Colors and our relationship currently with the brand itself.
Looking forward to that. Gee, you're from Amsterdam, and we may have some people looking from LA or other places who may not be that familiar with Pata and yourself, even though you're already internationally known. But for those who may still not know, can you say a little bit about Pata and how that was founded and developed?
Yeah. My name is Guillaume Schmidt. As Mitchell said, my nickname is G. I'm a co-founder of Pata. I started Pata in 2004 together with my best friend Edson Sabayo. We started the business out of love for sneakers. The love came from the hip hop culture. And our roots are Surinamese. I am a Maroon from the tribe called Saramaka. Which is always a major inspiration for us in a lot of stuff that we do. Edson's background is the original people that lived in Suriname, Indians. So he's Indian, a Sabayo, truthful. And 17 years later, with ups and downs, here we are. It started out of a thought of doing something together with our friends, and at the same time having a great time. And I think slowly but surely it built out to something that it is today.
Yeah, beautiful. So glad to have you both here. And looking at your work and the designs that you've been producing over the past years and decades, I think there are very interesting similarities, especially when we look at the theme of this exhibition. It looks at Black influence of on within and on the industry. And both of you have been pioneers, you could say. Pata in the Dutch context, one of the first, if not the first, Black streetwear brand, which developed internationally. And Cross Colors has also been one of the pioneers. TJ, to start with you, can you maybe say a bit more about the context of the late 1980s, which made you set up Cross Colors the way that you did?
Okay. Well, during the 80s and into the 90s as well, and even before that, to give a little backstory, is that Carl and actually Carl started a clothing brand even before Cross Colors, and it was called Surf Fetish. And that was a collection that I did a lot of the graphics for during that time too, even prior to Cross Colors. And that's where we really found out our strengths and what we really love to do as far as our work is concerned, and as far as our crafts. And with that relationship evolved into us wanting to do a full-on partnership into the Cross Colors brand. But that came out of a need for us seeing that there was a void and there was something missing in the industry, and it was us being represented. It was us being represented not only in terms of the product that was being purchased or being put onto the shelves and the hangers, but also in terms of the representation of that product. So when we started Cross Colors, we started with specific colors. We started with specific directives in terms of how we were going to represent the brand and who was going to represent it. And we had Black models in all of our advertising. as well, which was another thing that was different at the time, because you didn't see that. You didn't see that as far as the product is concerned, as far as the promotion and branding, but we made sure that we addressed that. And we got, we made sure we did that. And we actually, our first model was Jaiman Hantu, who actually is from Amistad, and actually we saw him first in the Janet Jackson video when he was in the desert doing that part. But from there, he was our first model. And today he's the model we use a lot of times when we actually speak of the brand and talk about it as well.
Yeah. And as I said, I think I saw some parallels with Pata. Pioneers in the game, you could say, in the Dutch context, and also in terms of representation, using black models, but also within the company, you're firmly rooted in the culture. How is the background influenced the company and the vision of Pata? So your history as Black people in the Netherlands.
Well, you know what? In actuality, like the biggest influence for Pata, like the backbone for Pata, was basically and definitely hip hop music. Me and Edson's background, we've been working in record shops. Me after that worked at a record company. We traveled. We did a lot of stuff, and everything that we did, that we shared the most passion and love about was hip hop. That's also how we got to meet each other. And in fact, that's also how I got to see and to know TJ's clothing, Cross Colors, Yo MTV Raps. Like this is before the digital age. So you got your information either through magazines, record covers, and at a certain point, late 80s, early 90s, Yo MTV Raps. Biggest inspiration ever. And that's where we got the information. That's where we saw Cross Colors. That's where you later on saw Fubu, but that's also where you saw the styles that people were wearing. So in that sense, we can never disconnect hip hop and hip hop culture and music with Pata. Combine that with our background, being young Black men, trying to do our thing in the surroundings that we have, that was quite exceptional. It was still a subculture, contrary to what it is now. Hip hop is pop music, so people don't really, people can almost hardly imagine if you're very young that the only place where you could hear the music was going to a bar and there was going to be 30 or 50 or 60 people there, And not for everybody, it felt like it was something that they dared to step into. Although it was a very opening, but it was a different culture. Well, we tried to always sing the gospel and spread the gospel of hip hop. So selling the sneakers for us was a means to an end to on one side travel, be busy with our music, make sure that we could do events and connect our people to do stuff that we wanted to have people to learn and work with.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing was that it just was not something that was commonly and always accepted.
Yeah.
But closed doors was never a problem, because those are the doors that need to be kicked in. Yeah. And we're still trying to do that, the work is not done yet.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely.
Yeah, the work is not done. And it's so important what you said about the hip hop culture and movement and the music itself in general. It had such a bearing on Cross Colors too, as well. And that was an organic transition to that with the brand, because with it, the entertainers, especially in terms of the music artists and the labels would come to us to clothe their young talent. And that's how we actually encountered the Tupacs and Dr. Dre's and those individuals when they were young, and we were able to clothe them. And be honest with you, at the time, we kind of stumbled on that process too of clothing the artists and the entertainers. And
can you tell a little bit more about that? Because we're talking about the late 80s, early 90s, when hip hop was all in development. So-called the golden age of hip hop. It was not as mainstream and commodified as it is now.
No,
so,
it was not.
Was it? You already said it was not like a very conscious strategy to.
It was not conscious.
Yeah?
No, it was not at all, because we initially started by approaching Source magazine. And Source magazine was a magazine that was a hip hop magazine, a magazine just for the music industry as well. And they focused on the artist primarily. And we approached them to do ads in the magazine because we just thought that would be a great way to promote clothing. And they never done clothing in the magazine before because it was primarily just for music. And when we approached them initially, they were against it, but then they realized the importance of it, and we started to promote in there. And that was a great way for us to go into it. But the other thing too, prior to that, is that we had a lot of samples that were laying around when we were doing development, because if you know anything about clothing, those that are experts, you know that when you're making things, you'll have a lot of extras, maybe that don't make the cut, basically, and you have those laying around. So we had our PR person at the time, marketing director, go to the studios, and he but he actually called the studios, and Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that was our first product placement gig, basically. And it was kind of an accident. And within days, he was wearing it on the show. Wow. And so that kind of gave us kind of a platform and kind of a way and a kind of a template in terms of what we need to do. And we just started that process. And that's how the music came into it, because we decided to hire someone that was in the music industry that had a relationship with the labels, and to bring the new talent to us, and we would clothe them, because we really weren't, at the point where we could afford or even wanted to pay all the money for the artists to bring them on, the high profile ones. So we got the up and coming ones. And that's why when you see like Snoop, Dre, and Tupac and other individuals wearing the clothes, it was because they were young and they were up and coming at the time, they were really popular, but they were up and coming. So that was kind of a thing that happened organically. And a lot of things happen like that with the brand. And that's something that people, when you're starting or working, you'll find a lot of things happen that way. And a lot of times when you plan things, it really doesn't work out. So it's a lot of times it's even better to kind of just let it be organic and let it happen, and let the brand kind of guide you, and the people as well guide you in terms of what you need to do next in your moves.
Oh, that's super real,
how does that resonate with you, G? Because we've seen a very interesting development in the Dutch context as well. I'd say especially in the last 5 to 10 years, hip hop is really taken off as well, became mainstream and commodified. And as you said, you started about 17 years ago. So how have you seen this development, and how has it influenced the way you approach the game?
Well, obviously, Pata is like I kind of look at it also like a kid, like a growing organic, living entity, So in the beginning, I was also a kid, I was 23, 24 years old. So my goals, whatever I wanted to do, whatever I knew, was in a very different stage than where I am right now. And as the kid grows and sneakers are still cool, but you also want to touch on other stuff in the world, the company starts growing with you, because it also has a voice, And I must say, with maturing, the voice gets louder. The voice, the voice gets more pointing out to whatever's going on in the current climate where we, for instance, are living in. You know what I mean? So, Pata grew with hip hop, but we definitely have a very well thought out voice, and we definitely always try to speak from not a position of perfection, knowing everything, doing everything, but definitely from a spot where we are proud to be imperfect and willing to learn and to listen. You know what I mean? Because in actuality, you can't do it all on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, I think what's also something that was a turning point was when you, and I think that's also definitely something that I, even more after the George Floyd thing, Black Lives Matter, something that I really took out of it, and which makes me also so happy that I'm around this table with my brothers, that it's time to build, you know, that it's time to reach out and to talk like, okay, you know what, we're here now. What can we do? What do you know? Tell me about it. Like, what can we, like, you know, and those are the conversations, and that's the real win, when all these other things start falling away and it's not a buzz anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So from the starting point, talking about vanity, just the music and the fun part, we grow all the way to where we are here and the points that I just touched upon.
Nice. And I think there's an interesting parallel between the two brands as well. Even looking at what you're wearing now, the colors, the messages that you try to share with the world through fashion. I think both of your brands make a very interesting combination of using fashion as a way to share a social or maybe a political message. Looking into cross colors, I think that's something you've done since the beginning. Mm-hmm. Even what you're wearing now, HBCU, I see the RBG colors. Can you tell a bit more about that? What the idea behind this?
Yeah, well, when we started the brand, we actually the name was originally Cross Cultures, believe it or not, and then we changed the name because we realized that someone else had that name, and we didn't want to have any conflicts going on, but we wanted to still keep the CXC in the name, and so we decided on Cross Colors, and we spelled the colors the British way or European way rather than doing it the standard English way for the States. And with that, it just gave a little twist to it. And that came from our marketing director, too, at the time. He's Jamaican. And then also, too, a lot of the nuances of the brand, and far as the colors are concerned, each color represents something for us, for the label. And this is something that he helped us with, too, as well. And it's the green is for the earth, the yellow is for the sun, the red is for the blood of the people, and the black is for the people. That's in the colors of the brand and Cross Colors itself. And we kept that true. And we wanted to also, with the branding process, we understood too that we didn't want to alienate anyone. We didn't want anyone to feel like they weren't included in the brand and what we were trying to do as far as the movement. So that's why we came up with the slogan, Clothing Without Prejudice. So that we let people know that it was inclusive, that it was not trying to alienate, it wasn't trying to exclude anybody, it was being inclusive. And I tell people too, and I tell the students as I teach too, that we were doing diversity and inclusion back in the 90s, and we didn't call it that. So we're doing the same thing we did then, they just put another word to it. Like a lot of other things, like streetwear now used to be urban, and then it was ethnic. It was all kinds of things, it just evolves into other things like all things do, but the things are still the same. The messaging is the same, and that's why I see the cross section between Pata as well with Cross Colors, because those things are very much ingrained into the DNA of both our brands, as far as what we do, the movement itself.
Nice. You're definitely standing on the shoulders of brands like Cross Colors, like you should really imagine that before brands like that, it was like you were just buying Nike, Lacoste, like whatever came across, which the styles were that your favorite artists were wearing. And now all of a sudden, like you got Cross Colors, you got Carl Kanai, then later on you got Fubu and all that, so Fat Farm, and that all grew up PNB, which is like such like that literally is the foundation of like most of these huge brands that are now like common in the history of, say, for instance, streetwear, even specific. Like,
Right.
there is no streetwear without black culture. You know what I mean? Basically,
There is no.
So it is really, it's almost backwards. Like, yo, finally we have this thing, but without that part, for sure, there would not be streetwear as what it is now. You know, because think about it. You know, like streetwear, street culture, hip hop music, basically. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's so much, like, you know, like, because you skip a lot of things, but you can really say, like, okay, let's say 3 words, like, you know, let's say street, let's say culture, let's say hip hop, black, 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 black. You know what I mean? So in that sense, you know, I'm thrilled that we're now having these conversations, you know, because there's still so much to learn, and I'm definitely super interested, because Mitchell, I've talked to you about this a couple of times too, but it's really interesting, actually, TJ, that you said that you were a graphic designer, and that your partner Carl, that he was a printer. And I was talking to Mitchell a while ago, and I was explaining to him, like, yo, listen, man, I can find people to work in the store, you know, like, I can find models, you know, like, and obviously they are there, but when you look at it, like, yo, listen, where are the photographers, where are the artists, where are the, like, you know, where are the screen printers, you know, that look like me? And then they are there, but it's damn harder to find them, you know? So it's super interesting that you actually come from that perspective.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, definitely, and that's what I tell people too, as well. Even when you're doing a partnership, it's really good to have working partners that can contribute to whatever the situation is for it as well. But the subject of creatives and creatives of color, Black creatives, finding them, even here in the States, is difficult to find. And I think it's difficult. It's not that we're not creative, because we are just very, very, very creative. I think a lot of times the discipline related to that creativity and the nuances of presentation, the nuances of how to make yourself accessible to those that want to find you, are the thing that there's a disconnect sometimes with that.
But what about the education, though? You know, the education part, like, because isn't it like, you know what? It's like, all right, I don't see a lot of Black photographers. I don't see a lot of graphic designers. Then try to go to the schools. Are you seeing Black kids there? Not that much. So obviously they're not coming from those schools. Then you look at those teachers. Like, do they look like me? No, they're not there. So, like, yo, you know, it's quite a circle, you know.
Oh wow!
I was wondering what the parallels are, or the difference between, you know, the situation in the US and the Netherlands. Today, as you can see, you know, I'm wearing my Black Lives Matter shirt. I think Farida Sadok may be watching. She's one of the designers. Shout out to Farida. And today, it's exactly a year ago that, you know, one of the biggest anti-racist protests took place in the Bijlmer, the traditionally Black neighborhood of Amsterdam. More than 10,000 people showed up during this protest. So it was an amazing event. And a few interesting things happened last year. More than 50,000 people went on the streets, and for the Dutch context, that's amazing. In Amsterdam, all provinces of the Netherlands. And you saw a lot of organizations, companies, multinationals, and even educational institutions all of a sudden, you know, make statements, posting Black squares on Instagram and stuff. One of them was Amfi. Amfi's Amsterdam Fashion Institute. They posted, you know, some kind of statement with a black square. And the ironic thing that happened is that, like, I think hundreds of students pushed back and said, hey, you know, why are you making this statement when we've been through hell going to school on this institution? And we interviewed a few people. We did some research about Black racism in the city. talked to a few of these students from ANFI and also other educational institutions. And, they face a lot of issues like when they design or develop designs, people or teachers tell them like, hey, it doesn't fit the structure or the norms and the standards of their educational program. People using the N-word, so they're being faced with all kinds of examples of institutional racism, leading to the problem with G faces that it's hard to find graduates with a background in, for example, fashion design. So I was wondering what the situation is in the US. You're wearing a shirt with HBCU. I think there's a much longer history of Black presence and even Black activism within educational institutions. But apparently you still face some challenges. Can you tell a little bit more about it?
Yes, we still face challenges, especially for the educational platforms as well. I think in general, when you think of the U.S., I was educated in the South here in the U.S. I'm from Mississippi. I got my education in Mississippi and Louisiana. So with that, even with my upbringing, the textbooks that were used and that are currently used in a lot of the schools themselves don't reference us. They don't make reference to our achievements and what we've done a lot of times, not in a balanced way. And not even for the natives of the country here, they're not represented, in a good light too, as well, or shown their achievements, and that's the thing too. A lot of times the achievements not shown, but the other things are, that are shown with those in the context of those. With the learning process, I just have to say myself, I'm from Mississippi. I grew up there. I grew up at a time when it was segregation. And when I was in the 4th grade is when they integrated. That means when they put the Blacks and whites together in the schools. So I've experienced that myself. So I don't have to read about it to figure out how it was. I was there and experienced that. But those things too are the things too that, as far as education is concerned, and I'm not going to say because some of my best instructors and best guidance I received were from the white instructors, who were very supportive. It's not the thing of saying that everyone doesn't like or doesn't gravitate to or will not support. That's not the thing. But the system itself just has to change because the system is built on years and years of bad things. I'm just going to say bad things. It's the structure is wrong. So that needs to be changed. And when the system is changed, then things will change. But as long as you're working with a bad system, then you need to make sure that you actually kind of change that thing or do things. We have to do things ourselves. And we're constantly doing that here. Even in the US, we have the HBCUs. But the things that we're doing and things we're doing internally just from our brand, Cross Colors, what we're doing is that we support HBCUs. We have HBCU interns from Howard University that we've actually hired at this point and guide. And that actually the young man, Kadeem, he's actually spearheading our social media now. He's our director of that as well. And we have an internship program, a mentorship program that we have every year. And we have the students that go through it. They basically graduate out of it and we support them and they're able to learn the industry. They're able to give projects and go through the process of learning things as well through that program. So with HBCUs, we support that. And we actually always are trying to figure out ways to be supportive in that way financially as well. And that's also as far as education and growth. We also have LBL, which is Love Black Lives, is our answer to Black Lives Matters. We have that collection too that we have as well. Where we have those messages reinforcing, and actually enforcing the fact that we need to love ourselves, and we have to be the ones that do that also. We have to start there. And that's why we're trying to work internally and go outwardly. And also another thing is Black Design Collective. That's a nonprofit that I'm one of the founders of. And Kevin Hall, Angela Dean, and also Ruth E. Carter, who's a costume designer from Black Panther. She's one of the founders as well of that organization, where we help creatives navigate through the industry. is a fashion base, but it's also affiliates, makeup artists, stylists, costumers, footwear designers, any of those creatives, because we see, again, addressing the point of creatives and the lack of creatives, at least finding them, we're trying to find a home for them to come to so we can actually not bring them to the home, but also be a resource for others that are looking for creatives to do things, you know. So sorry, a long-winded explanation for that, but that's kind of where we are with that as well.
I think it's something we can talk about for hours, because
for hours. Yeah, I can go on and on. That's why I have to stop and catch my breath.
I like the kind of solution-based practices that you're doing, because you know, we can talk and discuss about the problems for years,
forever,
for decades. Mm-hmm. I like the very straightforward approach. We've got a few questions already, actually. One of them is from Katie Mukai. I hope I'm pronouncing it in the right way, and it relates to the discussion that we're having. Because you've been talking about systemic problems. I think it resonates with you as well. Or the question is, what are the biggest challenges you come across being a Black creator / educator? Because it can be like one specific example of systemic problem, both of it. Maybe consistent with G.
I think one thing that is something that really sometimes bothers me is that people are wondering why I am striving for normality. You know, I'm not always trying to talk about my background. I'm not always trying to be in these narratives alone. You know what I mean? Like, because I love these narratives because it's needed, but at the same time, like we're also like founders of streetwear in general, I would say, in the Netherlands. Like, aside from inspiring a young Black cats who I love, we also inspired and worked with a lot of white people, other people, just for the fact that we are super good in what we do. You know what I mean? So I think one of the big challenges is also, aside from this narrative, also always keep focus on what you are doing yourself, and you know what information you're coming across, and also to what level do you set your own standards, you know? Because that's in the end something that's what's going to be the end bill. You know what I mean? What am I bringing into the world, and how good is it really? You know? And too little of the time sometimes, you know, and especially in this day and age, sometimes it is this conversation, you know. This conversation is a little bit different now because I'm actually talking with brothers, but sometimes I'm just tired, man. I'm just like, yo, man, listen, like, did you see our track record? Did you see what we brought out this year? Did you see what we said about different subjects? You know what I mean? So sometimes it can be hard to keep that focus real. You know what I mean? So I think that's really a major challenge to on that widespread sea of what the subject and everything that comes with it surrounds you with. Like, sometimes it's hard to navigate it all the time, you know? That's why we get into troubles like mental health, trauma, and all that type of stuff. That shit is not really a joke. So I think that's something that we need to keep in check, and definitely also build on with each other, you know, recognize and say things like, yo, listen, man, I'm standing on the shoulders of Cross Colors, and Farida made a beautiful t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Because these are the things that we can bring our standard and what we are doing to that next level. You know, because we have to recognize, like, yo, listen, give us our flowers when we're still alive. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Like, we're still here, we're still doing our thing, and like that T-shirt that Mitchell is wearing, aside from it being a Black Lives Matter T-shirt, it also represents our monetary power. You know, like, we put our hands together. You know, and we got some money together to support the cause, you know, and that's something that we should really, like, we have power and it's in our hands, you know. So whatever challenges we have, if we try to work together, all people, then we definitely gonna push forward.
Yeah, unity.
Great. Unity. Definitely.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
What's Farida asking?
Actually, yeah, it's a beautiful question, you know. When can we expect Across Colors Pata collab?
Ah.
Yo, TJ, you ready for that? Ready for that?
You know, I think it's already happening.
There you go. Like
conversation, it's already started for the most part. We're collaborating now over issues and things. Yeah. We're already collaborating. But we're going to make it, you know, some physical things come out of this as well, or tangible things come out of this as well. So, yeah, I think it's the time is now. You know, speaking of collaborations, you know, with how things happening through the pandemic, with the protests and all the other things too, you know, it brought forth a lot of things that you know, brought a lot of things to light, because there was a captive audience because people couldn't go anywhere, basically, too, as well. You know, so with things that are happening with the protests and all that, people are now, and also during that time, they did, like you said, they did the black box. They did the black box, but if you did a black box, then you need to be kind of accountable for making that box. You know, you don't just make a box and then walk away, or then later remove it from your page because, you know, you need room for something else. You have to be accountable for that as well. Mm-hmm. And so accountability is something that I think that we should, you know, collectively hold people to. You know, as far as if you came out and said you were going to do something, then let's see you put that on the table. You know, and ride with that, and ride with us, and ride with others, you know, to make those things happen. And that's what I saw too, that was different with this movement and with the protest as well, that it was not just people of color coming out to unify and to make these things happen and to say we need a change. There were all people out there. And I say a lot of times, even here in the state, there were more people of non-color out there, or, you know, that were representing than us out there a lot of times. Yeah, which is great, you know, which is great, because that's when change will happen. That's when change will happen. And that's what I'm excited about with this as well, you know.
Definitely. It's a great conversation, but I'm making notes for myself and everything. Yeah, speaking on that, DJ, you've been active since 1989, and it's quite a while. I was wondering, because it's beautiful that this protest happened last year, and indeed millions of people were mobilized across the world addressing these issues. White, Black, people of color, all kinds of people came together. But at the same time, you know that you know from your own experience that, you know, a lot of these problems have been on the agenda for quite a while, and, you know, there have been different waves of these kinds of movements. So I was wondering what you know, keeps you going on and inspired also within the fashion industry, because I know you've had some challenges as well. So what keeps you going? What inspires you?
Well, like you said, we started in 1989, and we had a really good run for, I guess, about 5 years with the brand itself. And a lot of people don't know that in terms of the history and how long we were around in our first venture out into the clothing industry. But it was about 5 years for the most part. And then we went away for a while, and we came back about 5 years ago. And we came back because people were asking us to, you know, address those topics, and kind of, you know, they were just saying it was time, because there was a resurgence of the 90s. Because I think I would just say the 90s babies decided that they wanted to see the stuff that they kind of missed out on. It was the ones that were born in the 90s, but they didn't kind of get the total taste of, you know, the the music of that time and the clothing of that time, and they wanted to see it, and it kept popping up with vintage collectors all over the internet too as well. And so with that, we were asked by some retailers to if we were interested in doing it again, and we were able to obtain the name and all the other things too in terms of legally, and we were able to put some product out there. And to be honest with you, we put product out there first because we were so excited to get started. We were hesitant at first, but then we were excited, and we put products out there because we said, okay, we need to do some new, fresh stuff that the youth are going to gravitate to now, because we were looking at trends and we were looking at other things, and we put things out, and they were amazing. The buyers loved them, but the buyers were the babies from back then. Now, those are the buyers, and they were like, well, this is great, but what about that stuff you did back then? So we had to go back to the drawing board for the most part and start to collect our own archive back again and gravitate to those things and recreate the same messaging again. So when you look at our clothing, which is on our website at crosscolors.com, you will see the retro pieces. You can see pictures of people back in the day wearing the product and the remakes basically of those products now and there because of the messaging. The messaging has longevity. It's like making a classic piece in your collection and it never goes away because people can wear it forever and ever. These messagings have that same energy and have the same thing that people want to see. They want to see that. And today, we have retailers that approached us now today that didn't approach us 30 years ago and wouldn't approach us even before the protests, before the horrible things that happened as far as the violence and all those things. But because of accountability, and I think and diversity and other things too, that have been on the tip of people's tongues, those things have pushed people. And not just because of that, but they feel accountable and feel like they need to, do that outreach and have that product in their stores as well. And the messaging is true. It's not something we came up with because of the protests. It's something that was already there. And I say that because the same messages we did in the 90s, we're doing today as well. Exact same things. They're stronger now, I even think, than they were even back in the 90s as far as the value of them.
Yeah, that's beautiful to see that different generations of people,
yes,
resonate with the message.
Yeah.
And, change takes time. Sometimes we're a bit impatient, but sometimes you just have to, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So.
Right. It is. But I love this conversation because this conversation has had, from, as you said, in two parts of the world, but it's the same conversation.
Absolutely.
It's the same conversation, and we want to make sure that if globally we connect, all around the world and address the conversation, again, change will happen. It has to. So I want these conversations to keep going, but I also want to have solutions as well come out of this and longevity, not have the conversation just today because, we're having the exhibition is at the museum, but have the conversation constantly and consistently so that it's there and everyone's aware of it, and the change that needs to happen with that too.
Yeah.
Not a trend. It's here to stay. Yeah. Or as far as change, it's here to stay.
Yeah. We have another question from people watching. It's a question from Tiana Much, if I pronounce it correctly. And if I'm correct, I think I saw some of her work on IG. Beautiful. She made a beautiful video, which relates to what you talked about holding people accountable. I think she's a design student, and she made an awesome video with a black square put on a t-shirt. We posted it on the Kick-Out of the Peak page for people who are interested. Anyway, her question is, what advice would you give to a young woman of color at a predominantly white university trying to mix my creative school projects with activism, which is sometimes not too appreciated or seen as too controversial. Shall we start with you, Ajit? I know you've at least been involved in projects at different educational institutions.
First of all, I see that, like, you know, the fact that it's not appreciated or that it's too controversial, I look at that as a closed door. And closed doors is something that you will come across all the time, whether you are studying, whether you are going into business, whether you walk into a street, whether you are getting helped in the right, correct way in a store or whatever. And there's a couple of ways how you can go at it, you know, like you can start screaming and panicking, or you can just do the work and do that at the best and the highest level possible, you know. And I definitely think that even if people think at that specific moment that it's too controversial and that you think that it's not appreciated, if the work is good and if it stands out, it will find a way. And people will listen and will look at it and will think like, wow, you know, because then you win in two ways, I would say. First of all, you pushed yourself to make the best possible work. That's the one win. The other win is, even if only one person likes it, you're already there. You know what I mean? That's all you need. Like, you know, and that's not something that you even need because you are happy yourself. You pushed it yourself, you know? And too many a times, people are at places, make stuff, and are not heard or don't want to let themselves hear, you know? So if you have a voice, yeah, use it, you know? That's what it is at all levels. So yeah, just make it, just do it.
Yes, just do it. I hope that advice helps her. TJ, I know you're also a teacher besides designing and managing the company, the brand. You're also a teacher in LA. Can you maybe tell a bit about what you're teaching and what advice you could give to this young lady?
Okay, well, I teach in the fashion department. I teach design. I teach the digital programs, Illustrator, Photoshop, and I also teach classes like distribution strategies, marketing and promotion, and also history of costume. Those classes too, and textiles as well. But I just think, you know, I went to schools that were predominantly white as far as my educational background. And I think, G, you said it best. When you do excellent work, and put it out there and you know it's good work, and that's all you need to do. You know, whenever you're working on these projects anyway, or working through school and working through these sessions, they're going to give you some parameters. They're going to give you some guidelines and things like that. The thing is, you hit those benchmarks and then you go outside of that. I think you always should do that. I think you should set your standards higher than whatever is given to you anyway. And you achieve that, and don't let others, and in any sense of the word, be your validation. You never let anyone else be your validation, because I think that's been the thing that's been an issue, and it still is an issue, I think, in a lot of cases, because we feel like we need to be validated by a certain system or a certain institution or certain individuals before it is good or it's right. You know, no, it's not that. We've been validating, we need to validate ourselves, because we're the best validators of our own stuff, you know, and we need to take that on this, you know, and carry that through everything that you do. You're your validator, you know, but in your validation, you make sure you're doing good work. You don't validate yourself, you be your hardest critic. You have to be, because that's how the doors are knocked open, that way. You know, Carl and I, we've always been that. We set the standard high. You know, no one can really usually come to us and say that we didn't do something right or whatever, because we are our worst critics. We are constantly. We're constantly making sure that we do the standards or set the standards so high that we have to jump, you know, high to make sure it's achieved. And so that others, when they look at anything that we do, it's good. It's good work, you know, and that's what you have to do. Good work all the time.
Beautiful advice. So, you know, do excellent work. Don't let others validate. You validate yourself. So I hope you took some notes, and that it can be useful in your future and your study program. G and I were talking earlier, and both of us were also wondering, as a pioneer in the industry in the US, we were wondering what or who. Did you have mentors? Did you have people you could ask for advice, or who you could, ask for support back in the days when you were, kind of opening the pot? How did you go about that?
Well, back in the day, and this goes back to what I said a little earlier, is that Carl and I, especially Carl, he had a business. He had a screen printing business. A Black man having a screen printing business in the clothing industry in Los Angeles during that time was already historic, and we joke about it because when I went to interview for my job with Designer Screen Printing, which he owned, I didn't even know he owned the company because I was interviewed by someone with blonde hair and blue eyes. And that's who I thought ran the company. That's who I thought was the head of the company. And then once I was hired, then I saw him. And then I knew I was working with him, which really, really made me feel very good about working with the company. And just for me to see the excellence of the work that was done and how he navigated and how he actually had a business going too was very inspirational to me. So he's my inspiration from the onset, starting in the clothing industry, and I think we kind of both keep each other inspired even today. But my other inspiration is my family, of course, because they keep me on track. Even if I wanted to get out of our line or do anything outside of the norm, they're going to keep me holding to that too as well. And just friends also. And my inspiration also were those that came before me and those that were there at the same time for the most part too. The Willie Smiths, the Patrick Kellys, these individuals too as well, and tons of others. And that's why we and I look forward to keeping forth or bringing the educational forward so we can learn that we've been here doing this for a long time. We've been doing this. Our inspiration, if we look back historically, we've done this and been doing a great job at it for a long time. Maybe not out front usually, but we've been doing it. So my inspiration is just to make sure that every day I try to do something that's positive and try to make sure that I'm doing good work, basically. And I just go back to that and inspire yourself. Again, go back, inspire yourself. And when you're not encouraged and when you're not thinking that things are good, you still need to go. You still need to go. And you need to find that. Find that always. If you can't move forward anyway. Because that's all you have to do. That's all we got to do. That's what we're here for anyway.
Yeah. I feel like already moving now, man. No, it's beautiful words, beautiful words. G, actually, I have the same question to you. You partly I reflected on the question already. So of course, colors are one of the brands you looked up to and used as an example and inspiration. What I like about the work that you do, and it's also reflected in this t-shirt, is that it was created with a few younger brands, a few from the younger generation, Daily Paper, Finning Pieces, TNO, Farida, Osalar. So they look up to you, but who were other people, other brands that you had as an example when developing Pata?
In terms of that, it was really like definitely some of the people that was doing it in the States. Cross colors is no doubt. I think PMB was big for us. 555 Soul. You know, those were real people that are like, you know, also in our stream of people that did great things. You know, and I think there's so much inspiration from a lot of, because we see what we do also as a universe, you know? So it's not a single-minded inspiration, that the inspiration is only coming from other clothing makers or anything like that. It's just a universe of stuff that we are really interested in, you know? So there's sports inspiration, there's music inspiration, there's social, educational inspiration, books, you know? Like, and that's all open doors, like, you know, whether it's James Baldwin or Michael Jordan or Steve McQueen as a director, or you know, your close surroundings. You know, it's just these are all things that create that universe. You know, and first of all, obviously, the people that you are with every day, like, you know, people that are you with, that's the people that you talk about, like, what's the freshest music, what's the slang of the day, what's the, you know, and that's what it is. And in terms of these brands looking up to me or looking up to us, I think in that sense I really learned from what I've witnessed is people that were having a little bit of the crabs in the barrel mentality, like, yo, let me keep this, like, yo, you know, like stressed out, like, yo, I need to keep this and don't share it because I'm gonna lose my position of power. And we always wanted to definitely turn that cake around, you know, like when I use Edson's word, he's always like, yo, man, we like we was there, but the goal is that they are better than us, you know, and therefore for them to be better than us, we need to play at the highest possible, like, you know, we need to be on some Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type thing, you know what I mean? So we always need to play at the best of our abilities with the goal to elevate the game, you know? And to elevate the game, like, you know, like, yo, look at look at the basketball game right now, you know, having all these people that build the game from step to step to step. You know, you go from this, you go from Dr. J to Michael Jordan, from Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant to LeBron, and so on and so on. So with that in mind, we always said, like, yo, listen, the people that come after us or that with us, we should be so good that they want to be better than us, and they will become better than us. Therefore, the game will change. You know? Those are the real game changers.
Yeah. Some real diamonds and keys you're sharing there.
A la tonte pasito.
You know my bro, Kobe.
Yeah, though.
Maybe for the people from the US, I think it's nice to say that pata is Surinamese word for shoe. So Sranatongo is the language that was developed during slavery in Suriname, former Dutch colony in South America, Caribbean. And the language was forbidden for quite a long time. It was taboo. So literally my mother's generation, I grew up with the thought that, you know, it was disrespectful to talk Sranatongo. It was so-called Negro English. So that's something, as an anthropologist and Surinamese person, I love that a word, something of our culture, which was literally suppressed for hundreds of years, has become popular culture now. And this is also the power of Black culture through fashion. I can think we can talk about this for hours, but I have to look at the clock and, you know, have to respect everybody's time. So I think we have to wrap it up, unfortunately. And maybe you can end it with a last thought. I hope a lot of young people are watching or will be watching from the industry, aspiring designers, artists, or people maybe already developed some experience and still are being faced with some challenges within the industry. Are there a few, or let's say one, what is one important lesson you would like to share with those people watching? Maybe we can start with UG and then end with TJ.
All right. I think, and I guess I said this before, everything begins and ends with knowledge of self. You know, if you can love yourself, you can love somebody else. You know what I mean? And if you know yourself, you know, if you know where you're coming from, then you know where to go. It's basic principles. But if you hold these principles high, you know, like sky's the limit. You know, there's no limit. There's no ceiling. There's nothing, you know. And yeah, just do it, you know. Keep it simple. And that's where then it's going to work out. It's all going to work out. Like, you know, we're in this together anyway.
Knowledge of self.
Very good.
DJ, do you have a last thought you would like to share?
Two things. One is for this industry and just for life in general, and at least the things that you want to do or want to achieve, you have to have the passion for those things. I think because passion will carry you further than even money. Because even when the money runs out, you got to still think of what will carry you through that moment, because those times happen. So there's ups and downs in everything that you do. So I think passion, you need to have that, you know, for what, and then if it's not there, then you need to move on to something else and find what that is, you know, for you to drive forward. And the other thing, the last thing is that it takes a team to make it happen. It is not just you. Of course, you are your validator. You're the one that's going to say, you know, these are my standards. You're going to make sure your standards are high. You still need to be open to suggestions and opinions of others too as well, because you're not the end all of everything. But you got to realize too that it takes a team to make things move. Typically, you cannot move a mountain by yourself. You got to always have a team and someone else to support you with like-minded in terms of your goals and aspirations of what you want to do. And in terms of, again, your passion, have others that are like-minded like that too. Join forces with you that have something to contribute to that. And you guys will go forward, and everyone will go forward with that too. Passion and teamwork.
Awesome. Wow. Inspiring talk. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. I think it was a very fascinating, interesting, intergenerational, cross-Atlantic exchange.
Love it.
I appreciate all of the wisdom that you shared. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing all this interesting information and energy. And for the people watching live, thank you too. You know, the weather is great. Most people are, you know, just enjoying the weather outside because we don't have that much good weather here in the Netherlands. But people can watch it back via YouTube. And as we said, this talk was part or related to the exhibition Voices of Fashion, which opened recently at Centraal Museum Utrecht. Go check it out, learn more about its history, learn more about Black culture, how it influenced the industry. As we said, without Black culture, you know, what would there really be? There's also an awesome catalog, Voices of Fashion, designed by Sarana Angelista with some of the beautiful art of Irish on the cover. And we've got work of Farida Sadok, Smith, TNO, Pata. Too many names to name. Go check it out. Thanks everybody, also the team of Centraal Museum, Michiel and Michael. And yeah, keep moving forward. I think we can end it with that. And hope to see you guys again.
Thank you.
And thank you. I hope the collab will happen.
It will. We'll talk. More conversation.
Read it on creative direction too.
All right. Okay. Wonderful.
Nice to meet you, TJ.
Nice to meet you as well. Great. Thank you so much.
Cool.